hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Good. Okay, awesome. I can't hear you, so if you can't hear me, make sure you let me know beforehand. So, hey guys, thank you guys very much for coming today. My name is Jalen Bazia. I'm the global strategist for AI, data science, and data management here at Dell. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about strategy, about how we blend AI and data, and how we can actually bring AI to our data. And it's a very interesting conversation. I'm going to do it a little bit differently than I usually do. I do speak with a lot of customers, and I think one of my biggest takeaways is that while I think you can go to many different consulting shops that are, I'm sure, here, and they can give you guys strategies and decks and so on and so forth, I'm going to actually take you guys through a journey of our own. Right? The best way to show you how we do this is to be able to prove to you that we have done it ourselves, and this is how we've learned. And there's no one way to skin the cat. There's multiple ways to do these type of operations, these strategies of blending AI and data. But I want to make sure that you guys have a true understanding of saying, hey, we are nothing special here at Dell. We had the same issues that you guys, I'm sure, are thinking about and have in your own environment. And how did we actually proceed forward? And that's very important. So before I move forward, I want to make sure that while I do represent Dell, and I'm sure everyone knows this from our laptops and our storage and servers and backpacks and everything else we probably sell, my background has nothing to do with hardware. I am a scientist by trade. I came to Dell with a long career in science, and so my whole background is on data. And that was quite interesting, right? Because Dell is a very different type of beast. And we have, like I mentioned, we have a lot of the same problems in the data space. We want to be able to bring AI to our data, but we want to be able to use AI for being able to do things like generate revenue, being able to get efficiency gains, get better product, get better ability to provide value and customer service back to our customers. And it's very important for you guys to get an understanding of us a little bit more so you understand about our data space. I don't want to talk to you about product. I want to talk to you about our data space and how we blended this strategy together, right? That's very important. So first, let me go through and help you guys understand what's happening in the market. And why is this very important? Because in order for us to be able to understand strategy, and in order for us to understand how we blend these two strategies to be able to drive an outcome that results in an ROI, and in order to provide benefits for our organizations, we first need to understand where this all began and why we are here right now talking about AI. And what this means in terms of data. Because while we're all focused on AI, the core of AI is data. The output of AI is data. I think we seem to forget about this a little bit, right? We really get stuck in the shiny lights and the objects and the compute power and NVIDIA and AMD and all these great kind of buzzwords. But the reality is I need to be able to use data in a tool set, which is AI, and the outcome of that is going to be data that I need to take action from. And so this is why strategy is very important when we blend it with reality. And so let's start off by understanding what's happening in the market, right? So last year alone, I flew 290,000 miles for Dell around the world. I've met with every customer in the world in terms of industry. From the largest banks, I advise them on their strategies all the way to the smallest of organizations, in everything from healthcare to governments. And so there's one thing that is for sure, though. Everyone is interested in being able to derive the maximum output that they can from their data in order to drive some sort of action, which should result in profitability and cost savings. And so this is a fundamental truth, because while we are so much focused on bringing AI to our data, we also need to understand that what we're trying to do is productionize a beta technology. And that's very critical, because when we productionize a beta technology, we need to be able to understand how do we actually decrease the maximum cost associated with the development of that technology, and a key portion of that is data. What do I mean by that? I mean that when we look at AI and we look at bringing AI to our data, 90% of our projects are data engineering, not data science. Their ability for me to access my data, clean my data, understand how do I get it situated in a way for me to consume it, get in an AI toolset, for example. And that becomes a very interesting situation, because why are we talking about this now? Well, the reality is that when the AI bubble popped, everyone already possessed the most valuable asset in their environment. The most valuable asset in their environment is not compute, it was their data. The problem is that compute power became cheaper, faster, easier to obtain, and we started seeing these really key bubbles pop with some generic algorithms and some generic outputs that we thought, hey, this is going to be easy. But the reality is that we need to learn how to crawl before we can walk. And so while we have compute and while everyone's focused on AI, in order to bring AI to our data, we really need to go backwards and actually focus on our data first. And that's exactly what the problem that Dell had, of course, as well. So what does that mean for Dell? Well, what it meant for Dell is that in order for us to be able to actually use AI in our own environments and be able to actually understand and go after workloads, whether it's customer service or whether it's Gen AI bots or you name it, we actually needed to first solve our data problem. Because garbage in equals garbage out. That's really the fundamental truth when it comes to AI. And so we had to look at our own organization. We said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we need to do this a little bit more holistically. We need to change Dell at its core. We need to be able to change Dell at its core from not just two strategies, not just from a data strategy, which is bundled with AI, and of course, a technology strategy, but a business strategy as well. And why is that important? Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Dell does a lot of research, And of all the research that Dell does, about 10% actually makes us money. 90% of our research just goes to waste. 10% is a very low number when we're looking at financial investments in AI. That's very key for us, because while we're a technology company, we also want to make money, just like anybody else. We also want to make sure that we minimize costs. We don't have an unlimited budget. And we also need to blend a business strategy to drive actions so we can decrease the amount of cost associated with our environment so we have enough money to be able to invest in AI. And so how do we start this down this path? Well, first we identified, hey, if we're going to bring AI to our data, because bringing data to our AI, we tried that, right? We tried that, and I'll prove it to you guys. Actually, a lot of us actually have tried it, and we're running into the same problems now because we tried it. And so when we started down this path, we said, okay, let's try to solve some of the low-hanging fruit associated with data first. So when we bring AI to our data, we can actually derive a maximum ROI from that investment in AI. And we identified about 5 key issues. When we look at the data journey, in order to actually focus on the return on investment in AI, it all starts the same. There's a business problem. A business problem is defined by business value. Business value is defined by profitability or cost savings, or both, of course. And then now that problem can be something as simple as saying, hey, I want to be able to use a Gen AI bot so I can provide richer, valuable information back to my customers on their order that they just placed with Dell. Very simple, right? Why is that? Well, we're losing money. We're losing $1 million a year because customers get frustrated and they cancel their order. It has nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with AI. It has everything to do with business. How do I actually make more money and save more money? The next step, well, we get that use case and we sit down and we say, okay, where's the data? How do I get access to it? Where does it live? Well, right now, in every single organization I've met with, it lives in multiple different places. It lives in an SAP environment, it lives in a Oracle environment, a Cloudera environment, you name it. We have data everywhere. And now that's the hardest problem, because now I have to get access to it. So in order to get access to it, and even think about AI and bringing AI to my data, what's the first step I have to do, especially my data teams? They have to put a ticket into IT. IT sends an email back. Thank you for your ticket. I'll get back to you between 1 and 6 months. They get access to a limited amount of data. And by the time my team gets access to a limited amount of data, they realize, oh, wait a minute. It's the wrong data. Why? Because I only had a limited view of my data environment. See, that's the thing with AI. AI doesn't really care about opinions and platforms and spaces. It cares about if I'm going to get access to the most valuable IP that needs to go into my transformation engine, I can't have limitations. I need to be able to work together. Because in order to productionize AI, it's not a technology issue. It's a trust issue. I have to be able to invest in AI, and the output of AI is data, and that data needs to cause an action that the business trusts. So me bringing AI to my data alone will solve no problems, especially if we all don't talk the same language. So we run into, once again, an accessibility issue because everyone has their own opinions on how they should be managing their environments, especially at Dell. I'm sure you guys may have run into the same thing and probably have the same things in your environment. So once again, now I get access to the wrong data. That's the first journey that's the first step in the journey. So our team goes, okay, well, I want to bring AI to my data again, but I have the wrong data. What do? I have data in another system. We put a ticket into IT. IT says, okay, great. I'll get back to you in 1 to 6 months. They give you access to a little bit more data, and you realize, oh, it's the wrong data again. Now, all this happens only because I understand what type of AI I want to use, but the key ingredient to AI, once again, is data. Garbage in equals garbage out, right? And so that's the first step. The second step is, in order for me to actually consume AI and blend those two strategies, I actually need to be able to understand how do I get truthful information. In order to do that, I'm going to need a combination of information from multiple systems, multiple environments, and then I actually have to get the business to agree. This is a very difficult task, especially as we grow up, because when we're kids, our parents teach us, hey, make sure you play nice with one another, make sure you teach each other, make sure you help each other. Now, if you use the same concept as adults, if I go to my SAP leader and say, hey, I want to bring this AI project to life. I need you to give me full accessibility to your environment and also help me instill a governance model that is the same as my team that's in Databricks. How many of you guys think they're going to work well together? No. This is why strategy, as a scientist, I get really reluctant when people start telling me strategy because I need to see it in reality. Right? How am I going to make this work in reality? Otherwise, this is where management consulting came out of, right? Where we just pay a whole bunch of consultants a whole bunch of money and they give us a white paper that doesn't actually come and do anything. So when we look at this and we said, okay, how do we blend this? How do we actually be able to start getting people to talk to one another? Because the very next step is, in order for me to get better output from AI, now I have to actually build a clean data set, a data environment that's going to feed this AI model. Right? Even if I bring AI to my data, I still have to make sure that data is useful by the entire organization, not just one part of the organization. Because otherwise, trust is not there. And my investment in AI is a siloed investment in AI, which is what we've been making throughout the years. And so the very next step is enhancement of this data. Well, how do we do it? Traditionally, we got smart and we said, hey, we're going to build these teams called data engineers. Data engineers, phenomenal individuals. What they do is they go and do the first two steps of this data journey. They say, hey, I'm going to go find the right data associated with this AI project. I'm going to go access it. I'm going to go try to blend multiple data sets. And then I'm going to go and sit with the business and try to get them to help me understand, hey, how do I clean this data? Is this the right data? Is this the wrong data? All this happens prior to me even thinking about a model. The modeling process is a very short process, especially in this day and age, because in order for me to be able to use AI, it's very simple as downloading an open source model that's already been there. Most of the models are open source anyways. And so that entire life cycle is the data engineering life cycle that I just spoke about, right? So the very next thing is, how do we solve this? Because when 90% of my costs associated with bringing AI to my data is data engineering, not actual data science, what that means is I'm not producing any net new. I'm wasting 90% of my budget on cleaning my own house that I should have done the last 30 years. And that strategy has consistently evolved into what we have problems with right now. And this is the whole reason why bringing AI to your data is a very difficult thing to do, is because in order to actually be able to burst this bubble of how corporations have evolved, we actually have to transform our data environments in a marriage of what I just mentioned before, 3 strategies. A business strategy with a data strategy, which encompasses AI, and finally, an infrastructure strategy. And I'm not talking just about Dell, guys. Even though I work for Dell, I probably don't know much about it. My team could probably tell you more about it than I can, right? I'm talking about a holistic strategy. A holistic strategy that supports the growth of not just one AI installment, or not just one AI project and bringing AI to your environment, but the next 1,000. And why do I say that? Because AI builds on top of one another. What I mean by that is, in order for me to do AI properly, I need to make sure that the output of AI is data, and that data is going to be useful somewhere else. And I can be able to do more and more and more projects. Because if I productionize in a silo, I'm going to have to essentially be able to support in a silo, and I just keep running into the same thing, and my strategy fails. I'll never make money on it. Actually, that's how vendors make money on it, including Dell, right? That's how we sell. Because we know that when you productionize and invest in AI in a silo, that means you have to be able to secure it in a silo. You're still going to run into accessibility issues, performance issues, scalability issues, and all these things are contributing factors in the AI space, in the AI strategy space, because we have to think about this in the blend of those 3 strategies. And so in order to actually expedite this process and being able to get valuable output, because AI, once again, is a beta technology, I have to keep training and training and training and training it in order to actually start getting some sort of value and then stabilize it. I need to be able to expedite the data engineering process. And that's really the big and the hardest part about blending these 2 strategies, is how do I expedite that process? Well, let's think about this. What do we do at Dell? And I'm going to give you a little bit light at Dell. Remember, I'm not here to tell you about product, but I want to tell you about our data environment and how we blended those 2 strategies. That's a very important thing. Well, a little insight into Dell. Dell operates in every single country we're legally allowed to operate in. That means we have an office in every single country we're legally allowed to operate in. That means we have data in every single country we're legally allowed to operate in, and we produce mass amounts of it. We own 5 smart factories in the world. 5. One of them here is in Brazil. We have one in Saudi Arabia. We got one in Poland. We have one in India. We have multiple types of data that enrich and come into our environment. Why is this important? Because in order for us to bring AI to our data once again and blend those 2 strategies, we need to understand our data environment not from a small instance, but holistically, because everything must work together. Now, we own a company called Alienware. How many people know Alienware? Any gamers? Right? Awesome. We own a company called Alienware. It's a separate subsidiary. We actually own our own bank. Did anyone know that? We own our own bank. We don't own just a small bank. We own a bank that's so large that we are required to report in the same regulatory manners as JPMC, Bank of America, Barclays, so on and so forth. What that means is we understand banking environments. We actually are our own bank, right? We do lending ourselves. We own our own smart hospital. We fund a smart hospital. So we own healthcare data as well. And because of multiple types of data environments, now we got to get a little creative with AI. Because once again, a siloed investment of data, me bringing AI just to my factory floor for, let's say, an object detection model, I can use the same type of model somewhere else in a different part of the business. Otherwise, I'm reinventing the wheel. And that doesn't really make sense. So what this also means is that we have multiple silos of data, just like anyone else in every single business in the world. What does that mean? Well, we have 130,000 employees at Dell globally. What I like to say is we have 130,000 opinions around the world on how to best manage our data, how to best categorize it, how to best store it, as an example. And what that means is that it's very difficult for us to work together in order to be able to bring the best data environment possible in order to fuel AI and do it in a manner that we can make money on it, not just endless research. Because like I mentioned, we do research, but that's not really how we make money. We make money when we can optimize our processes, right? Things like being able to understand, how do I get information where it's produced to where it needs to be to drive an action. Part of this may be AI, part of this may be just pure analytics. So I say this because what this also means for Dell is the first step in being able to bring AI and an AI strategy to my data environment is to be able to unlock the data. And why has this happened? Well, we looked at all the platform companies. We use every single platform ever existent at Dell. That means we pay license fees like there's no one's business. We have a lot of money that we go out the door. Why is this important? Because that means we've made siloed investments in data, which means it's actually a negative aspect and when we talk about bringing AI to our environment. It also becomes very interesting because when we look at all of these organizations, we're partnered with all of them, we use all of them, we needed to think about it differently. We said, okay, if we want to use AI and we want to bring AI to our environment, it's not just about blindly using tool sets. We can be married to tool sets all day long, right? We all, especially everyone in the AI space, I'm sure you guys use tools all day. Cloudera, Databricks, Snowflake, so on and so forth. Hopefully you do, right? But we looked at them and said, oh wow, let's look at the holistic environment. Let's look at their strategy. Because they all have the same type of sales slogan, right? We are the AI platform. We can be able to bring AI to your data. It sounds great. It's like the perfect sales tactic. But there's only certain contributing factors to this because in order to actually make profit from AI, we have to make sure that we reduce our costs as much as possible. So the first sales tactic is what? Bring all of your data to my environment. Well, mass consolidation of siloed garbage data is just garbage data. No one agrees still. We can't bring AI to our data. It's not going to solve anything. I just have to consolidate a ton of data. And the second thing is, we will give you the tools and technologies that you should use to be able to clean your data, get it ready, get it prepared, and get it staged for you to consume AI. Once again, another siloed investment in AI. You know, this becomes a problem when it comes to AI because in order for us to actually consume AI, remember, the hardest part of AI is not technology. Actually, is not even our technology space currently. It's trust. Remember that. In order for me to actually productionize AI, I have to win the trust of everyone in my environment. That's why it's so hard to bring AI to our data, because our data is the one that's corrupt. It's not the AI itself. Why? Because everyone's had an opinion on how to manage that data. And so, you know, this became an interesting topic for us because we said, hey, we need to actually think differently. And what do I mean by that? We need to think of these organizations as toolset organizations and pick the right tool for the right job, but blend a holistic strategy that allows us to bring the best AI tools while also solving this data engineering problem, which means that we're solving a social problem at Dell. We're making sure that everyone is starting to talk to one another, work together, and make sure that we're all talking the same language. And that becomes a very difficult thing. So we had to force it. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you a quick story. I grew up in a city called Baltimore, Maryland. Who's watched The Wire? Anyone heard of Baltimore? Right. It's one of the most dangerous cities, was one of the most dangerous cities in America. This was a very interesting time because my parents were immigrants, and little Jay used to go to school in Baltimore, Maryland. And the rule was when Jay comes home from school, Jay is not allowed out of the house. It's too dangerous. So I would go into my bedroom, I shared it with my sister, sit on the bed and look out the window. And I remember this guy that would stand out the corner. And every day, someone would come to him, or a whole bunch of people would come to him, they'll do something, and they'll walk away. Every day. And I'll see this guy in the morning, I'll see this guy in the evening. And so the curious mind of Jay asked my dad, Daddy, who is that guy? Is he giving out candy? And my dad said, no. All of those people are sick. They can't get their house in order. So this guy convinced them, hey, give me everything you own. I'll help you fix it. And so now the sick people go to this guy. They get a little bit of taste of what feeling healthy looks like. They go away. And then they bring all of their friends with them and say, hey, look, this guy made me feel better. Come with me. So they go back to the same guy, and the guy goes, hey, thanks for bringing your friends. You get credit. You don't have to pay me this time. They all have to pay me instead. And they just keep doing this, but they never get healthy. And I go, Daddy, why don't they just go somewhere else? Why don't they take their stuff and talk to one another, talk to their family members? Make sure that they help each other. And my dad said, well, here's the problem. He already owns all of them. He owns everything that they own. And in order to now be able to extract yourself from that area, be able to say, hey, I no longer want to use it, I want to go to another doctor, it's going to be a problem because either you have to leave everything you own or there's going to be some trouble, right? And of course, this guy was a drug dealer. So when we look at our data strategies right now, and we look at the investments we've made in our platforms, what's the difference between a drug dealer and me going to AWS or Microsoft? We'd use them too at Dell. I can get my data in for free, but try getting it out. All the egress charges. Go to Cloudera, go to Databricks, all proprietary environments. We use them. So number one concept in a data strategy is, how do I free my data? Because if I want to free my data, I got to do it thoughtfully. I can't just go to a drug dealer and say, hey, fix my problems. Because only I know my data. And therefore, if I'm going to get the best data, best AI in my environment, I need to make sure that I get a clean data environment first. I need to clean my own house. So we start off by saying, okay, let's just be able to connect to all of these data environments and make sure that we get the social conversations going. We make sure that the business starts using a singular data environment, not by lifting and shifting mass amounts of data, by forcing them to talk to one another. Making sure that we can start defining what a governance model looks like. And not just a singular governance model, but a holistic governance model across all of Dell. This was very important because this is how arguments started. Who thinks that the SAP folks agreed to the same data sets that the operation teams was looking at? No. No one wanted to talk to one another. Once again, remember, garbage in equals garbage out. I can bring all the AI I want to my data, but if no one agrees to the data, it doesn't matter what I just invested in. So it forced a conversation, forced conversations, and we started getting something interesting that happened. People actually started cleaning their own data. We started learning how they're using it. They started having conversations, real human interactions. We started having the finance team taking reports and going over to the operations team and saying, hey, if we want to have a better Gen AI bot that we can provide better information to our customers so we can have better customer retention, we probably need to have a conversation on what's truthful and what's not. And so this really started building a really big change for us, because now we were actually starting to see the blend of those two strategies coming together. We started seeing a blend of that data engineering, expediting data engineering, getting people to talk. What that also meant is now we were able to actually see better results from our AI when we brought AI to our environment. Everything from being able to do digital twins on our factory floors, all the way to being able to provide better quality information on processing times to our customers. And this became very interesting because now we actually start freeing the data, reducing our costs from an operational maintenance perspective, and getting a singular platform where I can actually bring AI to my data and peanut butter my O&M costs across a singular environment. And why is that important when it comes to AI? It's very important because when we look at a beta technology and we look at the investment of AI into our data, we have to keep in mind that we're trying to productionize, once again, a beta technology. So the more investments I make in nothing that's profitable, the more money that goes down my drain. You know, I say this humbly because my best friend's a data engineer. Data engineering is a cost center. It's not a profit center. It's what I should have done 30 years ago, but I didn't want to do it because everyone had an opinion. So now, in order for me to bring AI to my data, I'm doing it not just from one use case at a time, I'm doing it for the next 1,000 use cases at a time. Because I'm able to regain control of my data environment, blend those two strategies, and it's not an overnight process. It's the next 10, 15, 30 years of Dell existing. But now I'm actually starting able to understand the value of data and what AI should actually even be brought to my environment to drive an outcome that gives me the maximum ROI when I productionize it, and in a manner that I can actually blend three strategies: a business strategy, a data strategy, and an infrastructure strategy. Three personas: performance to cost to output. And that's what we're doing in terms of integration. With that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you guys very much. I'm happy to talk to you guys more. I'll be at the Dell booth for a little bit longer before I head out. Thank you.